Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year to all of you out there. Hope you were able to enjoy good holiday season with friends and family. It's been a while since I posted one of these sit down videos, but I wanted to talk about the Europa Cup. So last year, UEFA announced that a new Europa League tournament was going to be created for women's football. And 2 weeks ago, we found out some more information about this tournament. So in this video, I'm just going to be providing some of the details of what we know about this Europa tournament. So without wasting any more time, I'm just going to get straight into it. So firstly, what we do know is that it's not called the Europa League, which is what we see with men's football, but rather it will be called the Europa Cup. And that is to reflect the fully knockout tournament format. And so that means there's no group stage matches. Each round, teams will play two games, a home game and an away game. And after the two games, the team that wins on aggregate will move on to the next round. And the losing team will go home. Now, there are 6 rounds that are going to be played in this tournament. The first round, round 1, will have 24 teams. Round 2 will have 32 teams. Round 3, or also known as the round of 16, will of course have 16 teams. And then there's the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. Now, in terms of the number of teams that are going to be participating in this tournament, it's going to be 44 teams. So a lot of teams. 13 are going to directly enter into the Europa Cup, and then the remaining 31 teams will be teams eliminated from Champions League qualifiers. So obviously, right off the bat, that's great news for those teams. We tend to see with Champions League, the same top teams usually qualify into the final group stage matches of the tournament. And so this situation here, we now have teams that are going to be eliminated from qualifiers, still have an opportunity to compete in Europe because they're going to fall into the Europa Cup, which is good to hear. So in terms of what we know about these teams, so as I mentioned, there will be 13 teams that directly qualify for Europa Cup, and these teams will qualify into round 1. So 6 of those teams are third place teams from associations 8 to 13. Or put another way, the teams that finish third in the leagues from these countries showing on the screen. Then the other 7 teams who directly enter into round 1 are teams that finish second in the leagues from these countries showing here. And they are from associations 18 to 24. The remaining 11 teams in this round will be third place winners from round 2 of Champions League qualifiers. 7 teams from the Champions Path and 4 teams from the League Path. Now, if you're a visual person, this is what that looks like. So Champions League starts with a round 1, and that includes 24 teams who won their leagues from associations 29 to 52. That's leagues from these countries. Now, feel free to pause the video if you want to take a look at these countries. Now, these 24 teams will be separated into groups of 4, and each of the group of 4 teams will play in essentially a mini tournament. Now, since there's 24 teams, that means there's going to be 6 of these mini tournaments. Now, 2 of the 4 teams will play each other, and then the other 2 teams will play each other. The winners from these 2 games will go on to play in a quote-unquote finals, and the winner of that game will advance to round 2 of Champions League qualifiers. Now, since there are 6 mini tournaments, that means there will be 6 winners that move on to round 2. Now, in round 2 of qualifiers, this is where things get interesting. Round 2 will have 28 teams playing in the Champions Path. And it's called the Champions Path because only teams that won their leagues are part of this path. The 28 teams include the 6 winners from round 1, plus the 22 teams who won their leagues from associations 7 to 28, these countries. Now, similar to round 1, teams will be grouped into 4 where they will play in their own little mini tournament. But what's different in round 2 is the teams that don't win the mini tournament can still walk away with something. So the 2 teams that lose the first game will play each other in a third place match, and the winner of that game will qualify for round 1 of the Europa Cup. The 2 winning teams will play in a finals, with the losing team qualifying for round 2 of the Europa Cup, and then the winning team continues on to round 3 of Champions League. Now, if you recall, I mentioned that there are 7 third place winners from round 2 of Champions Path qualifiers who will play in round 1 of the Europa Cup. And this is where they will come from. The 7 third place winners from these 7 mini tournaments in round 2 of Champions Path. Now, there's also a league path, which is basically identical to Champions Path, except there are 16 teams playing in this instead of 28. And instead of it being champions, it's teams that didn't win their leagues, hence why it's called the league path. So, round two of League Path includes 12 second place teams from associations 6 to 17 and 4 third place teams from associations 4 to 7. Since it's 16 teams, there will be 4 mini tournaments of 4 teams, which will result in 4 third place winners who move on to round one of the Europa Cup. And so there you have it. That is where the 24 teams come from who will play in round one of the Europa Cup. 13 direct entries and 11 third place winners from the Champions Path and League Path of Champions League qualifiers. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, each round teams will play 2 games, a home game and an away game. And so that's what we see in round one of the Europa Cup. So there are 24 teams. Each team will play 2 games, home and away. And at the end of those 2 games, the winners move on to round 2. So since there's 24 teams in round 1, there will be 12 winners that move on to round 2 of the Europa Cup. So what does round 2 look like? So round 2 will have 32 teams. The 12 winners from round 1, which you see in the first bullet point, and then 11 second place teams from round 2 of Champions League qualifiers, and then finally 9 losing teams from round 3 of Champions League qualifiers. Cue the visuals. So the 11 second place teams are coming from round 2 Champions and League Path mini tournament finals, which you see here. These are the teams that lose that final match. Now 7 from Champions Path and 4 teams from the League Path. And then the 9 remaining teams who will be in round 2 of the Europa Cup are the 9 losing teams from round 3 of Champions League qualifiers. Round 3 of qualifiers includes 18 teams, 8 who qualified into this round from the Champions Path and 10 qualifying from the League Path. There will be 4 games played in the Champions Path, resulting in 4 losing teams who will drop into round 2 of the Europa Cup, and 5 games played on the League Path side, with 5 losing teams going to round 2 of the Europa Cup. And so that's where those 9 losing teams from round 3 of Champions League qualifiers come from in terms of the 32 teams that are playing in round 2 of the Europa Cup. Again, as with round 1, there will be a home and away game that each team plays. At the end of it all, there will be 16 winners. Those 16 winners from round 2 of Europa Cup will move into the round of 16. Now, after the round of 16, the tournament will essentially look like what we see with Champions League, with home and away legs in the quarterfinals and semifinals. The big difference being that the finals will also have a home and away game. But there you have it. This is what the Women's Europa Cup tournament will look like. And the winner of the Europa Cup will not only be crowned winner of this European competition, but they will also directly qualify into the next season's third round of Champions League qualifiers. Meaning, of these 8 teams showing on the Champions Path side, one of them will be the reigning Europa Cup winner. So I think there are a few interesting things that have come out of this news about the new Europa Cup tournament. One of them, first of all, is that I think some people, myself included, were possibly expecting more teams from top leagues to be able to compete in this tournament. So for me, I was thinking like 4th place teams from top leagues, similar to what we see with the men, where I think it's like the 5th or 6th place teams get to go into Europa Cup. We don't see that in this Europa Cup competition for the women. The top 3 teams from the top leagues qualify for Champions League qualifiers. If you finish 4th or below, you still don't have any opportunity to compete in Europe. I was kind of disappointed in that. That would have been teams like Manchester United or Liverpool or Frankfurt or Leverkusen, these type of teams. I think it would have been really interesting to see those teams compete in Europe, because often with these top leagues, the same teams tend to win. And so a lot of teams often find themselves outside of this top 3. And so they're never making it to Champions League. And so I thought we could get to see them in Europa Cup. Unfortunately, that is not the case. I kind of understand it, though. I think if I have to think about from UEFA's perspective, what the Europa Cup has done is they are allowing 3rd place and 2nd place teams from lower associations, lower leagues, qualify for Europa Cup. Which right now, the top leagues, they already have 2nd and 3rd place teams qualifying for Champions League. So these England, Spain, Germany, France, these countries always the first, second, and third place teams got to go to Champions League qualifiers. If you were second or third in a lower league, you didn't even qualify for Champions League qualifiers. You didn't get anything. You had to win your league or that was it. So it seems like perhaps UEFA is trying to even the playing field or at least provide equal opportunity for the top leagues and the lower leagues to be able to play in Europe. That's what it looks like to me. And so from that perspective, I do kind of get it, because when you play in European competitions, you get money. And so only providing the top teams opportunities to win money, but these other teams don't have it, is not really fair, especially if you're trying to grow the game. So I kind of get it from that perspective. Another thing that stood out to me about the Europa Cup news is, I'm not sure if you guys noticed this, but associations 14 to 17 are basically skipped when it comes to teams that get to directly enter into Europa Cup. So I'll just put that back up now. So as you can see here, the teams that directly qualify are associations 8 to 13, and then it goes 18 to 24. So associations 14 to 17, which specifically as of right now are the leagues from Switzerland, Albania, Scotland, and Cyprus. Teams from these leagues have no way of directly qualifying into Europa Cup as of now. So the only way teams from these leagues could qualify is if they finish in at least second or third place in Champions League qualifiers in like round 2 of Champions League qualifiers. So the first and second place teams from these divisions, I believe, do qualify into Champions League qualifiers. So basically they can't finish fourth. If they finish fourth, then they don't even have an opportunity for Europa Cup. I think that's a bit weird. I think right now there's not that many details that have come out other than what I've basically talked about in this video. And so I have to assume that UEFA will eventually explain why they skipped associations 14 to 17. But that is something that I thought was quite strange and that I noticed. Now, lastly, something that I've hinted at a couple times in this video is the fact that each round has a home and away leg. Now, that's pretty standard in Champions League knockout stages. So the quarterfinals and the semifinals, we're all used to seeing home and away. But when it comes to the finals in Champions League, it's just one game in a neutral location. That is not what we're seeing in this Europa Cup tournament. There is still going to be a home and away leg in the finals, which a lot of people I've seen, for sure, the most criticism that I've seen about this tournament has been with those finals. And I think it kind of makes sense. Like when you think about a finals, you want one game where you get to see the teams go all out because this is their only chance. And I think it kind of kills the momentum and the excitement a little bit, knowing that you have to watch a second game. Like what happens if the first game is a complete blowout? Like it's an unbalanced finals and the first leg is like 5-0. Now we have to sit and wait to watch another 90 minutes, which could end up being another blowout again, just before we can see the team lift the trophy. So yeah, I think it kind of kills the excitement. Obviously, if the first leg is close, then it makes the second leg exciting. But ideally, there's just one game that's played. Now, if I had to, again, think about it from UEFA's perspective, I'm thinking perhaps that maybe because this is the first year of the tournament, they don't know what the reception will kind of be like. And so perhaps they didn't want to play in a neutral location because you don't know which teams are going to make the finals. And if it's teams from lower countries that are not as popular, are you going to get a big turnout in a neutral location? For example, if it's like a team from Romania versus a team from Kazakhstan in the finals, and you're playing it in Spain, are you going to get a bunch of people coming to watch the Romanian team versus the Kazakhstan team in Spain? I'm not sure. And so I think that you play it safe. You have a home game. So at least, you know, when it's at home in Romania or Kazakhstan, those people are going to turn out. When it's an away game, when it's at home in the other team, those fans will turn out. And so you're guaranteed home fans. That's the only thing I've been kind of thinking about in terms of what UEFA may have been thinking when they decided to do it in a home and away instead of a neutral location. And then you do a couple of years of Europa Cup, you see how the turnout is, and then perhaps you consider turning it into a one game final in a neutral location. But you know what? I think this tournament is going to be really interesting. If we think about this year and even last year, teams that got eliminated in Champions League qualifiers, that was like Arsenal last year, Wolfsburg, this year PSG, Frankfurt, Atletico Madrid, Benfica. These are exciting teams that I would love to see playing in Europa. And so obviously we don't know if that's going to be like that next year, but it's not only going to be low association teams that are in Europa Cup. Just based on history, there are going to be some top teams that are going to fall into that tournament, which is good in terms of interest for like a neutral fan. But I think that you may see some imbalance. Imagine you have a team like PSG facing a third place team from Romania. Sorry to pick on Romania. I can't think of other teams right now, but like that is a huge gulf in terms of talent on the squad. And so I think that this tournament is going to be great for allowing these lower league teams to compete against other European competition. But I don't think it guarantees that there won't be some lopsided results, especially if we see some top teams eliminated out of qualifiers and then dropping into Europa Cup. But either way, we need more tournaments like this. As I mentioned, it tends to be the same teams that are qualifying for Champions League. And so let's see some other teams have an opportunity to play in Europe, have an opportunity to win money. As I mentioned, the winner of this tournament jumps straight into round 3 of Champions League qualifiers. So now you're incentivizing management of these teams to put in more investment because there's a bigger payout, not just from Europa Cup, but potentially from qualifying into Champions League. So yeah, I'm excited to see what this tournament looks like next year. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Definitely leave some comments down below about what you think about this tournament, the teams that are included, or even the teams that have been excluded. What do you think about the home and away finals? Not playing in a neutral ground. Any thoughts? I'd love to hear them. As always, please like, share the video, subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.